is Azumi and welcome back to my channel. And for today's video, I would like to share the story of Daniel in the lion's den. Before I start this story, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell para updated po kayo sa mga kwentong aking ibabahagi. Maraming salamat, guys! The story of Daniel is a very classic story. We've all heard it whether in school or in the church or in the Bible stories. But have you actually read the biblical account of this story? In Daniel chapter 6? If you need a recap of the story, you can watch here my slide video. This is such a wonderful Bible story and there are so many lessons we can learn from it that are valuable to our lives today, and I want to explore some of them today. Please join me, guys. Darius was the new king of Babylon. He was smart. He picked 120 of the very best people in his kingdom to help him rule. Then he picked 3 of them to be in charge. Daniel was one of those 3 men. King Darius respected Daniel so much. He thought about making him the ruler over the whole kingdom. The other leaders were jealous. They planned to find some fault in Daniel so they could get Daniel in trouble with the king. No matter how they tried, these leaders couldn't find anything bad about Daniel. Daniel was true to the king in all that he did. Also, he was careful and clever and always did everything the very best he could. The jealous leaders knew there was only one way they could trap Daniel. They knew that nothing on earth would stop him from worshiping the God of Israel. Daniel's enemies thought up a plan. They made a new law for the king to sign. The law said that everyone should pray only to King Darius. Anyone who disobeyed would be thrown into a den of lions. King Darius signed the new law. The new law made no difference to Daniel. He did what he always did. He knelt by his open window 3 times a day and prayed to God of heaven. The jealous leaders rushed to tell the king. King Darius had no choice but to arrest Daniel. The law had to be obeyed. Daniel had to die. The king tried hard, but he couldn't find a way to change the law. Daniel was sentenced to die by being put into a den of lions. Before Daniel was thrown to the hungry lions, King Darius said to him, "Your God, whom you serve continually, He will deliver you." The king didn't sleep that night. Very early the next morning, he rushed back to the lion's pit. King Darius shouted out, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God whom you will serve continually been able to deliver you from the lions?" Maybe he didn't expect an answer, but Daniel replied. Daniel called out, "O king, my God sent his angel and shut the lion's mouth so that they have not hurt me. And also, O king, I have done no wrong before you." King Darius was delighted. He ordered Daniel to be lifted out of the pit. The king knew God had delivered Daniel, and that Daniel's enemies were God's enemies. He gave a command, and all those who tricked him to sign the bad law were thrown into the lion's den. The lions ate them. King Darius wanted the world to know that the God of heaven had protected his faithful servant, Daniel. The king wrote a letter that commanded everybody to worship the living God, and the king restored Daniel to honor and leadership. And that's the end of the story. So what lessons do you think that we can learn from the story of Daniel in the lion's den? One of the main reasons that Daniel ends up in the lion's den is because The other leaders who were working under him couldn't find any reason to fault him because they couldn't find any actual faults. They had to manipulate King Darius into creating a new decree that would get Daniel into trouble. The only thing that they could use against him was his obedience to God. What a wonderful example for us to learn from. Stand firm in your faith. When the other leaders used his faith against him, it would have been easy for Daniel to be afraid, to want to hide his faith and his prayers, or to stop them altogether. But he didn't. He went immediately to his window and he prayed and prayed. He was bold because he knew that he should be obedient to God rather than bowing to the new decree of the king. Now when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. You can see it in Book of Daniel, chapter 6, verse 10. If you struggle with fear, you can check out here my slide all about how to overcome fear here, or watch my video slide. In this story of Daniel, we can learn also God's law and worldly law. When Daniel chose to continue to pray to God and to defy the decree issued by King Darius, he made clear his priorities. He rebelled against the law to the land he was in because it would have caused him to turn against God. I'm not saying that he should ignore all of our worldly laws. Laws are important, but we shouldn't obey laws that cause us to sin against God or to turn away from Him. One of the overwhelming lessons that we can take away from the story of Daniel is the incredible trust we can place in our God. Even in the most dangerous of places, alongside ferocious lions, or the real ones probably look even more scary than the lion in our slide here. Daniel trusted in God's power to save him, and he did. Even King Darius could see Daniel's commitment and trust in God. Daniel trusted, and God rescued him from the lions. The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him because he had trusted in his God. God reveals himself through our actions. The story of Daniel trusting God and being rescued from the lions is pretty awesome. But when we keep reading, we see the amazing impact of this story. Upon seeing Daniel's trust in God and the power that God has to save Daniel from the lions, King Darius was convinced to issue a new decree rather than forbidding everyone from praying to anyone or anything apart from himself. Now he wanted to point everyone to God. The one true God had been revealed to King Darius through Daniel's obedience and his trust in God. That's how much of the difference our actions can make. Thank you for spending a few minutes to listening this story. And God bless, and I hope to see you again in my next video. Let this trust God remind us that putting our trust in Him can give us peace and help us when we are dealing with life's challenges. Trusting God is one of the most important decisions that we can make for our life.